We'll begin with a late summer summit between Jimmy Butler and Wolves president and coach Tom Thibodeau that could go a long way toward determining the Timberwolves' future. Butler was a big part of the Wolves' push to end the league's longest playoff drought, which they did dramatically on the final day of the season with an overtime win over the Nuggets. Butler had 31 in that game, and though he missed more than a quarter of the season with injuries, he did lead many in scoring. The postseason, not as successful. Karl-Anthony Towns' first taste of the playoffs was brief as the 8th-seeded Wolves lost to Houston in 5. Now Butler, who can opt out of his deal next summer, apparently wants some clarity on what the Wolves' plans are moving forward. He also seemed oddly miffed about reports of the meeting taking place on Monday rather than Tuesday, as his tweet indicated. Sooner or later, we'll all work for The Athletic like Jon Krawczynski. He's the man who broke the news of Butler's meeting and joins us now here on Game Time. And John, apparently it has taken place. What do we know of the meeting?
Yeah, Matt, so we know that Tom Thibodeau was in Minnesota this morning, had a quick meeting this morning before he flew out to L.A. to meet with Jimmy Butler and talk things over. It's obviously a major meeting for the Timberwolves and for what's going to happen with them going forward. There's been a ton of rumors, a ton of speculation surrounding the chemistry of the team, surrounding Jimmy Butler's state of mind and what he wants to do with the Timberwolves heading into essentially the last season of his contract. And so there's so much uncertainty kind of surrounding this situation with Jimmy Butler, Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Tom Thibodeau, all of the above, that this was kind of the first step for the two main allies to get together and talk things over. Now, so far, details have been very slow to come out of that meeting. We're not exactly sure what was conveyed, how far Jimmy Butler went in terms of speaking about whether he was happy or not and what he thinks needs to happen. But anytime that the president of basketball operations of the team has to fly clear across the country to meet with his star player less than a week before training camp, you have to think that it's not under the greatest of circumstances.
Yeah, it's obviously serious, but as you alluded to, it's also a little curious. What is your sense of Butler's level of contentment after his first season in Minnesota? How did he fit in the locker room?
Yeah, it was, it was pretty obvious for much of last season, and he would say things on the record, and certainly you would hear things in talking to people who were around him as well, that he would get frustrated with some of the younger players. And there were several occasions last year where he told us point blank that he works harder than anybody in that locker room, and he wonders if everyone wants it as much as he does. And so that annoyance, that frustration was palpable with Jimmy Butler. And I do think at times it rubbed some of the younger Timberwolves like Towns and Wiggins the wrong way. They got a little bit tired of hearing him kind of extol his own virtues as much as he did. And I think where Butler was really trying to motivate these guys and get them going, I don't know that necessarily that was the end result of some of the things that he said and some of the motives that he tried. So there was clearly a divide in that locker room for much of last season, and it's carried over through the summer. And what I've said really from the start is I believe that those differences and that divide can be bridged. I don't think it's past the point of no return, but it is clear that there has to be some real honest and frank conversations from all of these people involved so they can try to connect and can try to get on the same page as they're ready to start training camp and step into a Western Conference that is only getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah, nothing like waiting until the end of September to work all this out, right? Jon Krawczynski with us from The Athletic. Appreciate it, John. And as promised, we'll bring in Steve Smith now. And Smitty, you've been on a lot of different situations in terms of rosters and teams. You've been a star player. You've been a role player. What does it say to you that Butler wanted this meeting with the president and head coach of the Timberwolves?
Well, man, we've been around a long time. First of all, let's start off. He was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and usually a star player, not that you can veto trades, but teams really want to know if I'm going to trade Zach LaVine and all these picks for you, that you really wanted to come. to Minnesota? So answer was yes, because he accepts the trade and it goes through. He's going to a team where it was his coach who I think elevated him to the player he is today and helped him get there. So it wasn't about him and the coach don't get along.
Right.
You already know Minnesota. You know what teams you're going to, what city you're going to. So it sounds like, and what you and John talked about, the difference between the young guys and Jimmy Butler. But I think that's the role of the veteran. You have to get those guys on your same page of winning because, quite obviously, they're going to respect you because what you've done, your body of work. I think there's one thing is really, to me, is not with him and the organization. It's him with the young guys. And when I say young guys, let's be honest, it's Carl Anthony Towns and Wiggins.
And
I don't know who else it could be. I think it's those two guys that they all got to get on the same page. But if you start to look at it, that's some talent, and they don't really play the same position other than Wiggins.
Yeah.
But you can get away with Jimmy Butler has the ball in his hand, and Wiggins plays a little bit better without it.
Really interesting, and particularly interesting it's happening so late just before the beginning of training.